Alright guys, I have another knife I want to review for you. This is going to be one of the NRA Outdoors models. This knife is actually produced by Benchmade for the NRA, and you'll find that nowhere on the box itself or on the knife itself is there a Benchmade logo. Okay, like I said, it's produced by Benchmade, but it's not a Benchmade knife. It's made for the NRA, and of course the NRA puts their own logo on there. Let me get in close so you can see that. It says NRA Outdoor Knives. Okay, so again, they're just using Benchmade as the manufacturer so they could pump out some knives and put their names on it, which is, no big deal. But it's, like I said, even though it's produced by Benchmade, it's not going to be advertised as a Benchmade knife whatsoever. The model here, says on the box, is a 12200S Pardue rolling lock. Pardue is the designer of this knife, Mel Pardue. He does a lot of work with Benchmade, so that's no surprise there. And the rolling lock refers to this specific type of lock, which I'll go over a little later in the video. But anyway, let me give you some specs on the knife. The blade here is 440C stainless steel. It's 3 inches long. It's got a combination straight edge, plain edge blade here. As far as the blade style, kind of hard to say. It's very unique. I don't know, I would call something like this a reverse Tanto, or perhaps just a modified Warncliffe or something of that nature. It's very hard to put this in a specific category because it's very unique. But anyway, closed, it's 4.5 inches long. It's got an FRN handle material here. Pocket clip, you can see, is all blacked out. Easy to use, not too tight. It is swappable for left or right hand carry, but this is only a tip up knife. As you can see here, you can't mount the pocket clip up by the pivot at all. Probably due to where the locking mechanism is, because this specific knife has this rolling lock. You couldn't mount this up here. I suppose they could have had one on the back, but I don't know. It's up to the designers with that. I see no reason for most knives to have at least the option to mount it in different areas, but for whatever reason they just choose not to. But the pocket clip on this is it's very nice. It's typical Benchmade. However, this is sterile. There's no Benchmade logo on here because obviously, again, this is not a Benchmade knife technically. But as I said, it's not super tight. It's easy to wear. The pocket clip is over this texturing in the handle, but it's not so aggressive that it's going to rip up your pants. I found carrying this knife, it was no problem getting in or out of the pants. So good pocket clip in my opinion. All the hardware on here are Torx bits, the pivot screw, as well as all these different body screws. So, if you want to take this knife apart, I guess you could. You just need a Torx driver or Torx set. It's really easy to open. I mean, it's fast to open. As you can see there, you can kind of flick it out, or you can, do the slow opening as to not to scare anyone if you're out in public. The rolling lock is kind of unique. It's similar to the axis lock in that basically it's on the side of the knife and it's something that you slide. But besides that fact, it's completely different to the axis lock and how it works. Basically, I got to come in close because as you guys know, my camera doesn't have great up close detail. But if you look right in the center of your screen, if I can get it to focus here, as I move the lock, you can see this little piece actually rotates. Okay, let me try to get this nice and steady and focused if I can. There we go. Okay, so as I move this, you can see this rotates up and down. It's actually a little cup. Okay, what's rotating is kind of like a little C, like this, and basically it matches up with the indentations on the back of the spine, on the bottom of the tang here on the blade. So let's say here's the blade, here's a portion of the blade like this. Imagine a little cup. It's kind of hard to show, but when it's locked, it's almost like this, where it's holding on to the end of the blade here. Okay, so it can't move. Now, as you push down the lock, it rotates out of the way, so the blade can move freely. Okay, see my knuckle again is being the end of the tang, and this is the lock. So when it's locked up, it's like this. It won't move. And then as you rotate that down, it rotates like this, and then you can move the blade. Now, when the blade is shut, it's a little bit hard to depress. As you can see, it wants to pull in like that. Okay, that's again another indentation on the back of the tang here, where the lock actually kind of fits in. And it's very hard to see there, but again, right in the middle of your screen, if I rotate the lock a little bit, you can see where that is. and that keeps the blade in, so it's not going to accidentally fall out. Okay, it takes a little bit of pressure to push this blade out. It's not tremendously hard. Obviously, your thumb's meant to push forward. It's easier pushing forward than it is pulling back, but it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to get out. I like this in that it keeps the blade in the handle. Okay, unlike cheap knives, you can have the blade kind of open up in your pocket. It's not going to open up in your pocket. You do have some pressure keeping it down. As far as flicking it out, it is real easy to flick out. When I got this knife, it was a little gritty, to be honest. I cleaned it up really good. I oiled in the pivot area, and now it's nice and smooth. So you can flick that out nice and fast. One thing I would like to note is that it does have double or dual thumb studs. However, even though it has thumb studs for left-hand operation, using that, manipulating the lock is a little bit weird. You have to use, obviously, your pointer finger to pull down. You know, I'm not a lefty, so it's kind of hard for me to understand this completely, but I'm trying to figure if I use a knife like this with my left hand, will my finger actually interfere with the lock? And, you know, I don't know. I don't think so. It's just resting on the lock, but again, I'm not a lefty, so I wouldn't use it a lot to really know if that would interfere or unlock the blade, you know, release the blade as I'm using it. To be honest, I don't think so. But with a right-hand operation, you can see I'm not touching it at all, so it's not an issue whatsoever. I mean, any kind of grip I want to put on this knife, I'm not touching that lock. So for righty users anyway, it's pretty safe. You're not going to, you know, pull that down and release the blade while using the knife. Let's see what else. The thumb studs, even though you do have, you know, ambidextrous thumb studs or dual thumb studs, you know, to be honest, they're uncomfortable to use. They're kind of sharp. They're not, I mean, they're finished nicely, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the pyramid design. I'm not a huge fan of this design. If you guys out there own the Kershaw Vapor, I never did a review on the knife, but I actually own two of them prior to making videos here on YouTube, and they had a very, very steep point on their pyramid design on their thumb studs, and it's just really uncomfortable. It hurts to use. This one's not horrible, but you know, it's not great. And also you can see it's right up against the knife handle here as well. Most thumb studs that are very easy and comfortable to use have a pretty decent gap, okay, in between the side of where the thumb stud is and the actual handle, so you can actually get your thumb in there to use it. This is right up against the handle, so it's not, like I said, it's not hard to use, but it's a little uncomfortable. And same thing with the lock itself. It's just that pyramid design having some, I guess, rough edges or, you know, whatever. It's, I don't know, it's just not the most comfortable operation. Let's see, what else? FRN handles are comfortable to use. It's the general shape fits your hand pretty well. I mean, it's obviously just a nice, simple curvature here. It's not the most comfortable knife I've ever had, but it's not uncomfortable in any way at all. It's easy to use. I actually use this quite a bit, testing it out. What's great about this knife is because it's so affordable. I mean, at least it was for me. I picked this up at Cabela's for $10 because I guess they were, I don't know, changing their stock or whatever. So at $10, it's a must-have deal. I mean, it's a Benchmade quality. You know, for $10, you can't beat that. However, doing some research, I found that these sell from anywhere from $30 to $40. Now, once you get into that price range, there's a whole lot of knives to choose from out there, and to be honest, I don't think this is your best option. However, it's not horrible. If for some reason you really like this blade, the design, which personally, to be honest, I really think it's an ugly knife. It's functional. It does work. It comes nice and sharp. You know, the lock is pretty easy to use, you know, one-handed or two-handed. Flicks out nice and easy. If you can get a hold of that thumb stud, you can see I slipped off of it right there. But anyway, if you get a good hold of it, it does flick out easy. You know, it's a decent knife to actually use. But I don't know, it's an ugly knife. Like I said, for $10, I kind of had to have it. But it is not, it is not, in my opinion, a good-looking blade. But you know what? That comes second or third in my list. Functionality is what I'm looking for most in my folding knives. The blade itself, typical Benchmade, like on the Griptilians and a lot of different models. You have that satin finish, which is nice. Obviously, you can see it has some glare to it. But what's good about that is the smoother the finish you have on your knife, the easier it is going to be to slice into materials because it's not going to want to bind up on the blade. You're not going to find a huge difference between cutting with a, let's say, a satin finish blade and a coated blade, but trust me, there is a little bit less resistance when you have a smoother surface. The serrations, I'm not a huge fan of serrations unless you have a full run of them. A fully serrated knife, I think, is very useful in a lot of different situations. You'll find, if you read the forums a lot, people don't like the partial serrated blade because they don't feel there's enough run of serrations, that it's just too small of a section to be really useful. And, because a lot of people like using it almost like a saw. I would agree with that. That's one of the reasons why I don't like partially serrated blades, but, they serve a purpose. They're good for some cutting tasks. I think the downside to having serrations is that most people can't sharpen them very thoroughly. Yeah, I mean, you can get them somewhat sharp, but you can never get that factory edge on them. And I'm the same way. I can sharpen serrations, but I can never get them to that how they were originally. Just razor sharp. I can't master that. And I've tried many different methods and different systems as well to do that. And like I said, I can get them sharp, but not that hair popping razor sharp that is impressive when you first get the knife. And this knife is razor sharp out of the box. Again, typical Benchmade. It's not, you're not gonna have any problem getting a dull knife. The 440C stainless steel I've talked about in the past. It's marked in the blade here, as well as made in Taiwan, or it just says Taiwan. But 440C, if heat treated right, I think is definitely a decent steel. I don't scoff at it at all. I think there's a lot of different great steels on the market today that compare with 440C. And again, if you're going to pay full price for this, between $30 and $40, you could probably do a little better in some cases, but for the most part, 440C is definitely a good place to be at in that price range as far as a blade steel goes. It's light. It's not very heavy at all. That's a good thing about having the FRN handles, or any synthetic really. The weight on this is 2.8 ounces. It's not, well, technically it is lined. Let me get in close. It's kind of hard. They're not like full liners. They don't come the full. If I can get this to focus at all. Oh, I can't get this to focus in. You can kind of see in there. They're not full liners. They're more for the mechanism with the lock. However, they do go almost to the very end here on the one side. Well, actually, I can see it on the top. I guess you can call these full, full lined or steel lined handle here. It doesn't add a whole lot of weight though. Again, it's still being, with a 3-inch blade here, it's still 2.8 ounces, which is very light for a knife. And you could feel it, carrying this around, it kind of disappears in your pocket. So if you're if you're into the real lightweight knives, this might be a great option for you as well. But again, like I said, if you're paying $30 or $40 for it, there's a whole lot of competition out there. So I don't know if it's really the best knife. Again, I don't know. I just think it's an ugly knife. Maybe it's just me. And again, you do have to get used to the thumb studs. You can see I'm kind of fumbling a little with them. Just the initial pushing it out is just kind of tough. But once you hit, around there or so, if you get a good grip on it, which is hard to do because you have the, it's so close to the handles here. But if you get a good grip on it, you can flick it out. It is a decent knife to use. If you can find them at Cabela's for $10 like I did, I would definitely pick one up. I think it's a great little beater knife to throw in a toolbox or something, or in your car. But if you're looking to pay the full price, if Cabela's is no longer selling these at that price, or they're out of stock or something, paying the 30, I mean, I looked on Newgram, they're $37.50 on there. To be completely honest, I would not buy this knife for $37.50. That's just me. I just don't like the way it looks all that much, and there's just a whole lot of other knives you can get for less money that I think are just as good, if not better, in a lot of different ways. Some examples are the K-bar Dozier folders. There's a whole bunch of varieties on that knife. The whole bird line from Spyderco is great. $20 or $30, you can get a bunch of different models that are just as good as this, if not better. But like I said, I happened to see it for $10, so I had to have it. It's not a terrible knife, but I don't know. There's a lot of downsides in my opinion. One last thing, again, if I didn't talk about it, this texturing. It looks aggressive, like this diamond pattern, but it's not. It's very smooth. It almost, it's kind of funny. If I were to run my finger across like this, it almost tickles your finger. I can't explain it. It's not really grippy at all. It's actually pretty smooth, but I don't know. I can't explain it. It's almost as if the diamond pattern itself would have been very grippy, but they smoothed it out. I guess in the molding process or whatever, the top is actually smooth. And if I can come in close, maybe you can see that. But it is not an aggressive texturing at all. It looks to be, but it's not. It's actually very smooth. So anyway, there it is. One of the NRA models, 12200S. Obviously the S stands for serrated version. If you were to get this in plain edge, it would probably just be the 12200. So not horrible, just not my favorite. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.